The Galactic Coalition had a problem. His name was Warlord Tyrus. For 15 years, Tyrus and his Dominion fleet had burned their way across the galaxy. They conquered planets. They enslaved entire species. They turned peaceful colonies into smoking ruins. And no one could stop them. The Coalition tried everything. They sent their best warriors. Tyrus killed them. They sent their smartest negotiators. Tyrus killed them too. They offered him money, territory, and power. He took it all and kept conquering anyway. 17 ambassadors had walked into the Dominion flagship to negotiate peace. 17 body bags had come back. So when the Coalition announced they were sending an 18th ambassador, the alien empires thought it was a joke. When they learned the ambassador was a human woman named Amy Park, they were sure it was a joke. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 1,000 years ago. Compared to species that had ruled the stars for millions of years, humans were babies, weak, soft, unimportant. And Amy Park seemed to prove every stereotype right. She was small, 5 foot 3 inches tall, with black hair cut short and simple brown eyes that seemed too kind for the darkness of space. She spoke softly. She moved gently. And she smiled constantly, as if the universe was a friendly place full of friendly people. The alien ambassadors who met her before her mission shook their heads in pity. "She will not survive the first hour," said the ambassador from the Vorthan Empire. "Tyrus will eat her alive," agreed the delegate from the Crystal Kingdoms. Perhaps literally. Amy heard these whispers. She heard every single one. And she kept smiling. The journey to the Dominion flagship took 3 weeks. Amy spent most of it alone in her small cabin, looking at old photographs and writing in a journal that no one else would ever read. Sometimes the ship's crew heard her crying late at night. But every morning, she emerged with that same gentle smile, ready to face another day. When the Dominion flagship finally appeared on the view screen, even the experienced military crew felt fear. The ship was massive, 10 miles long, covered in weapons and armor, surrounded by hundreds of smaller warships like a shark swimming with its children. This was the heart of the Dominion war machine. This was where empires came to die. Amy stood at the viewport and studied the ship carefully. Her smile never changed. "Ambassador Park," said the ship's captain, a nervous man named Tom, "are you sure about this? We can still turn back. No one would blame you." Amy touched the viewport glass with her fingertips. "How many people has Tyrus killed, Captain?" Tom swallowed hard. "The official count is 800,000, but the real number is probably higher. 847,216, Amy said quietly. "I know the exact number. I know every name, every face, every family that was destroyed." The captain stared at her. There was something in her voice that he had never heard before, something that did not match her gentle appearance. "Ambassador, I have to ask, why did you volunteer for this mission? Everyone knows it is a death sentence." Amy was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small photograph. It showed a man with a warm smile and kind eyes, standing next to Amy on what looked like their wedding day. His name was David Kim, Amy said. He was Ambassador 16, the one Tyrus sent back in pieces after making him watch the destruction of 3 colony ships. Captain Tom felt his blood run cold. "He was your husband?" "Yes." Amy put the photograph away. "He was my husband. We were married for 12 years. He believed that peace was always possible. He believed that even the worst monsters could be reasoned with. He believed that kindness could change the universe." She turned to face the captain, and for just a moment, her smile flickered into something else. Something harder. Something that made the captain take a step backward without knowing why. I loved him for that belief, Amy continued. I loved his hope, his optimism, his faith in the goodness of others. She looked back at the Dominion flagship, but I never shared it. The shuttle that carried Amy to the Dominion flagship was small and unarmed. As it crossed the empty space between the ships, dozens of Dominion weapons tracked its movement, ready to destroy it at any moment. Amy sat alone in the passenger cabin, her hands folded in her lap. She was not wearing armor. She carried no weapons. She had refused the military escort that the Coalition had offered. Just one small human woman in a simple gray suit, flying toward the most dangerous being in the galaxy. The shuttle landed in a massive hangar bay filled with soldiers. Hundreds of Dominion warriors stood in perfect rows, their weapons ready, their eyes watching the human woman with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. Amy stepped out of the shuttle and looked around calmly. The soldiers towered over her. Most were reptilian, like Tyrus himself, with scales and claws and teeth designed for tearing flesh. Others were from species that had been conquered and forced to serve. All of them looked at her like she was already dead. Amy smiled at them warmly. "Good morning," she said. "Could someone please show me to Warlord Tyrus? I would hate to be late." The soldiers did not know how to respond. They had expected fear. They had expected begging. They had expected a terrified human trying to run or fight. Instead, they got a polite woman who smiled and asked for directions. A commander finally stepped forward and grabbed Amy's arm roughly. "Move, human," he growled. "The Warlord is waiting." Amy let herself be pulled along without resistance. As she walked through the dark corridors of the flagship, past trophy cases filled with the weapons of fallen enemies, past screens showing conquered worlds burning, past all the symbols of death and destruction that Tyrus had created, she never stopped smiling. The soldiers who watched her pass felt something strange, something they could not explain. This woman was walking to her death. She knew it. Everyone knew it. So why was she smiling? Deep in the heart of the flagship, sitting on a throne made from the bones of his enemies, Warlord Tyrus waited. He had killed 17 ambassadors. He was looking forward to making it 18. He did not know that Amy Park was not like the others. He did not know that her smile was not a sign of ignorance or weakness. He did not know that behind those kind brown eyes, a plan 3 years in the making was about to unfold. And by the time he understood, it would be far too late. The throne room of Warlord Tyrus was designed to make visitors feel small. The ceiling rose so high that it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered with weapons and trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds. The floor was polished black stone that reflected the red lights like pools of blood dot, and at the center of it all sat Tyrus himself. He was massive, 9 feet tall when standing, with dark green scales that had turned almost black with age. His body was covered in scars from battles that had killed lesser beings. His eyes were yellow and cold, like a predator watching its prey. His claws were long and sharp, stained with colors that Amy did not want to think about. Around his throne stood his generals, 12 of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Each one commanded thousands of warships. Each one had personally killed millions. They wore armor decorated with the symbols of species they had destroyed, and they looked at Amy with hungry amusement. Commander Vex stood closest to the throne. He was smaller than Tyrus, but no less dangerous. His scales were bright red, the color of fresh blood, and his reputation for cruelty was known across the galaxy. It was Vex who had suggested making Ambassador David watch the colony ships burn. It was Vex who had laughed while doing it. Amy walked into this room of monsters with her hands at her sides and her smile on her face. The doors boomed shut behind. Tyrus leaned forward on his throne, studying the small human woman. He had expected many things. A trembling diplomat, a brave soldier hiding their fear, a desperate politician ready to offer anything for peace. Instead, he got a woman who looked like she was arriving at a pleasant dinner party. "So," Tyrus said, his voice like thunder rolling through the chamber, "this is what the Coalition sends me now." A smiling female. A tiny, soft, weak human female. His generals laughed. The sound echoed off the walls like the barking of wild animals. Amy waited patiently for the laughter to stop. Then she spoke. "Warlord Tyrus, I am Amy Park, representing the Galactic Coalition. I am here to discuss the terms of your withdrawal from the neutral zones." More laughter. Louder this time. Tyrus slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. The impact cracked the bone beneath his scales. "Withdrawal? You come into my ship, onto my throne, and you speak of withdrawal." He stood up slowly, unfolding his massive body like a nightmare coming to life. 17 of your predecessors made the same demand. Do you know where they are now?" He pointed to a section of the wall behind his throne. Amy looked. Hanging there were helmets. Human helmets. Coalition helmets. 17 of them, arranged in a neat row. "They decorate my wall," Tyrus said with satisfaction. "Their bodies fed my soldiers. Their ships became scrap metal. And their precious coalition did nothing. Because the coalition is weak. Because humans are weak. Because you are all nothing but food for the strong." Amy looked at the helmets for a long moment. Her smile stayed in place, but something changed in her eyes. Something that Commander Vex noticed but could not understand. "I am aware of what happened to the previous ambassadors," Amy said calmly. "I have read every report. I have seen every recording. I know exactly what you did to each of them." "Then you know what will happen to you," Tyrus growled, stepping down from his throne and walking toward her. Each step made the floor shake. "And yet you still smile. Are humans truly so stupid that they do not understand death?" "We understand death very well, Warlord." Amy did not step back as he approached. She did not flinch as his shadow fell over her. Perhaps better than any species in the galaxy. Commander Vex stepped forward, eager to impress his master. "She smiles because humans are children," he said with contempt. "They have barely learned to walk among the stars. Their brains are too simple to process real fear. Look at her. She does not even understand the danger she is in." The other generals murmured in agreement. Tyrus stopped directly in front of Amy. He was so close that she could smell the death on his breath. So close that one swipe of his claws would tear her in half. "Tell me, little human," he said softly, dangerously. "Do you know what I did to your last ambassador? The one called David Kim?" Amy's smile flickered. Just for a moment. Just enough for Tyrus to notice. "I kept him alive for 3 days." Tyrus continued, enjoying the reaction. "I made him watch as my ships found 3 of your colony vessels trying to escape to safety. 40,000 humans, families, children. I made him watch as we burned them all. I made him listen to their screams over the communication channels." The throne room was silent now. The generals watched with sick fascination. And when the last ship was gone, when the last human voice went quiet, I looked into his eyes and I saw something beautiful. Tyrus leaned down until his face was inches from Amy's. I saw hope die. I saw him understand that his species is nothing, that his coalition is nothing, that everything he believed was a lie. Amy stood perfectly still. Her smile was gone now, replaced by an expression that Tyrus could not read. "Then I killed him slowly," Tyrus finished. "And I sent him back to your coalition in pieces, as a gift. A reminder of what happens to those who waste my time." The silence stretched out for a long moment. Then Amy spoke. "I know," she said quietly. "David Kim was my husband." The words hit the room like a bomb. Tyrus froze. His generals froze. Even the guards standing at the walls seemed to stop breathing. "Your husband?" Tyrus repeated. "Yes, we were married for 12 years. He was the kindest man I ever knew. He believed in peace. He believed that anyone could change if given the chance." Amy's voice was steady, but something burned behind her words. "He believed in you, Warlord. Even after everything you had done, he believed that, somewhere inside you, there was something worth saving." She looked up at Tyrus with those brown eyes that suddenly did not seem so kind anymore. He was wrong. Tyrus stared at her. For the first time in decades, he felt something he did not recognize. It was not fear, exactly. It was closer to confusion. This woman had just admitted that he had killed her husband. She should be screaming. She should be crying. She should be attacking him in blind rage or begging for mercy. Instead, she stood before him like a statue made of ice, her face completely calm. "You killed my husband," Amy said. "You murdered 40,000 of my people. You have spent 15 years spreading death across the galaxy." She tilted her head slightly, studying him like a scientist examining a specimen. "And now you expect me to be afraid of you?" Commander Vex laughed nervously. "Grief has driven her mad," he said. "She does not know what she is saying." But Tyrus was not so sure. He had seen many enemies in his long life. He had seen brave warriors and cowardly politicians and desperate survivors. He knew what fear looked like. He knew what madness looked like. This woman showed neither. "Why are you here?" Tyrus demanded. "If you know what happened to your husband, if you know what will happen to you, why did you come?" Amy's smile returned. But it was different now. Colder, sharper. "Humans smile for many reasons, Warlord," she said. "Sometimes from joy, sometimes from grief, sometimes to hide our pain. And sometimes—" She paused, and Tyrus felt a chill run down his spine. "Sometimes we smile because we know something that you do not. What could you possibly know that I do not?" Tyrus growled. Amy reached slowly into her pocket. Every weapon in the room pointed at her instantly. 100 soldiers ready to fire at the slightest wrong move. She pulled out a small data chip and held it up between two fingers. "Everything," she said simply. "I know everything." And for the first time in his life, Warlord Tyrus felt the cold touch of fear. The data chip looked so small in Amy's fingers, so harmless. Just a tiny piece of technology that could fit in the palm of a child's hand. But the way she held it made Tyrus uncomfortable. She held it like a weapon, like a bomb that could destroy everything he had built. "Put that down," Commander Vex ordered, stepping forward with his hand on his blade. "Whatever trick you are planning, it will not work." Amy ignored him completely. Her eyes never left Tyrus. "This chip contains information, Warlord. Information that my people have been gathering for 3 years. Ever since you killed the first human colony." She turned the chip slowly, letting the red lights of the throne room reflect off its surface. "Would you like to know what we found?" Tyrus tried to laugh, but the sound came out wrong, forced, false. "Human intelligence is a joke," he said. "Your spies cannot even infiltrate a trading station without getting caught. You expect me to believe you have information that matters." "I expect nothing from you," Amy replied calmly. "I am simply offering you a chance to understand what is about to happen. Consider it a professional courtesy." She pressed a button on the chip, and suddenly the air above her hand filled with light. Holographic images began to appear. Maps, numbers, faces, data streams that moved too fast for the eye to follow. "Your fleet consists of 12,417 warships," Amy began, her voice taking on a cold, professional tone. "They are organized into 7 battle groups, each commanded by one of your generals. Your flagship carries a crew of 45,000 and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Tyrus felt his scales tighten. This information was classified at the highest level. Even most of his own officers did not know these exact numbers. Your supply lines run through 16 different systems, Amy continued. You have hidden shipyards in the Cora Nebula, the Dark Reach, and the abandoned stations around the dead star you call the Graveyard. Your fuel reserves are stored in hollowed-out asteroids at coordinates that you change every 30 days. Commander Vex had gone pale. The other generals were looking at each other with growing alarm. Your weapons operate on a frequency of 847.3 terahertz, Amy said. Your shields are vulnerable to sustained bombardment at 112-degree angles. Your communication systems use an encryption code that your chief engineer updates every week on the third day. Enough. Tyrus roared. He swiped at the holographic display, but his claws passed through it without effect. How do you know these things? Who gave you this information? Amy smiled that cold smile again. You did, Warlord. Every time you conquered a world, you took slaves. Every time you destroyed a fleet, you took prisoners. You thought they were broken, defeated, worthless. She shook her head slowly. You were wrong. They were watching. They were listening. They were waiting. She changed the display. New faces appeared. Some human, some alien. All of them looked ordinary, unremarkable, the kind of faces that no one would look at twice. Maintenance workers on your ships, cooks in your kitchens, cleaners in your hallways, prisoners in your cells who were not as broken as they pretended to be. Amy's voice hardened. For 3 years, they have been sending us everything. Every secret, every weakness, every plan you have ever made. Tyrus stared at the faces. He recognized some of them. Slaves who worked in the lower levels of his ship. Servants who brought him food. Minor prisoners who he had forgotten existed. This is impossible, he breathed. There is more, Amy said. This chip also contains the names and evidence of 17 of your generals who are planning to betray you. The throne room exploded into chaos. Generals began shouting at each other. Accusations flew through the air. Hands reached for weapons as old allies suddenly became suspects. Silence. Tyrus bellowed. The room went quiet, but the damage was done. The trust between his commanders had cracked. They were looking at each other with new eyes. Suspicious eyes. Amy watched the chaos with satisfaction. And finally, she said, this chip contains the access codes to your flagship's life support systems. The codes that your chief of security changed yesterday. The codes that he believes only 4 people in the galaxy know. Tyrus felt something he had not felt in decades. Real fear. The kind that made his heart beat faster and his breath come short. You are bluffing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. This is a trick. A desperate lie from a desperate species. Amy shrugged. Perhaps. There is an easy way to find out. Check your systems. Verify your security codes. Ask your generals where their loyalty truly lies. She met his eyes without flinching. Or you can accept my offer. What offer? Withdraw from the neutral zones. Return the territory you have conquered in the last 3 years. Release all prisoners. And submit to coalition justice for your crimes. Amy's smile faded completely. This is your last chance, Warlord. The only chance you will ever receive. Commander Vex laughed harshly. She threatens us? One small human woman threatens the Dominion fleet. He drew his blade and pointed it at Amy's throat. Give me permission, my lord. Let me show her what happens to those who insult us. Tyrus raised his hand, stopping Vex. He studied Amy carefully. She did not look at the blade at her throat. She did not show any fear of the general who could kill her in an instant. She simply stood there, waiting, as if she had all the time in the universe. Humans have a saying, Amy said softly. Beware the fury of a patient man. But there is another version that your intelligence reports never found. A version that humans whisper to each other when the lights go out and the universe seems dark and cold. What version? Tyrus asked despite himself. Amy's eyes locked onto his. Beware the patience of a furious woman. She closed her fist around the data chip. The delicate technology crumbled to dust, falling through her fingers like sand. What are you doing? Tyrus demanded. That chip had all your evidence, all your intelligence. You just destroyed it. I did not need to keep it, Amy said simply. The information was never meant for Mint. Then who was it meant for? Amy's smile returned. But now it was the smile of someone who had already won. Someone who is simply waiting for everyone else to realize it. It was meant for you, Warlord. A warning. A chance to surrender before the real battle begins. She spread her hands. You did not take it. That is your choice. But I want you to remember, in the hours to come, that I gave you the opportunity to survive. Tyrus grabbed her by the throat and lifted her off the ground. I have heard enough of your games, human. Whatever plan you think you have, it ends now. You will tell me everything, or I will make your death last for weeks. Amy did not struggle, did not gasp for air. She simply looked down at him with those brown eyes that seemed to see right through his scales and into his soul. You still do not understand, she whispered through his grip. I am not the threat, Warlord. I am just the messenger. Every light in the throne room flickered. Then the alarms began to scream. And outside the massive viewports of the flagship, in the darkness of space where nothing had existed moments before, lights began to appear. Thousands of lights. Human lights. Amy smiled. The message has been delivered. The alarms screamed through every corridor of the Dominion flagship. Red lights flashed in endless patterns of warning. Soldiers ran to battle stations. Officers shouted orders that no one could hear over the chaos. And in the throne room, Warlord Tyrus still held Amy Park by the throat, staring at the viewports with disbelief. Ships were appearing from nowhere. Human ships. They emerged from the darkness of space like ghosts becoming solid, their running lights blinking to life, their weapons powering up with a glow that could be seen across the void. That is impossible, Commander Vex breathed. We had no warnings, no sensor contacts. How did they hide an entire fleet? 7 fleets, Amy corrected him. Her voice was strained from Tyrus's grip, but she still managed to speak. 7 fleets, hidden in the dark spaces between stars, waiting for 3 years. Patient, silent, gathering strength. Tyrus threw her to the ground and stormed toward the tactical display that had appeared in the center of the room. The holographic map showed his fleet, the 12,000 warships that had conquered half the galaxy dot and around his fleet, surrounding it from every direction. Were the human ships, 14,000 of them. All batteries, open fire. Tyrus commanded. Destroy them before they can organize. An officer at a control station looked up with fear in his eyes. My lord, we cannot. The weapons are not responding. Then fix them. We are trying, my lord. But something is wrong with the systems. It is like they have been locked from the inside. Across the throne room, other officers began reporting similar problems. Engines would not start. Shields would not raise. Communication channels were filled with static. The greatest war machine in the galaxy had suddenly become a collection of floating metal boxes. Tyrus turned slowly to look at Amy, who was rising from the floor and brushing dust from her simple gray suit. What did you do? He growled. I told you, Amy said calmly. We had people everywhere. In your maintenance crews, in your engineering sections, in every part of your fleet that you never bothered to watch carefully. She straightened her collar. They've been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Small changes. Tiny modifications. Nothing big enough to notice. But together they have turned your entire fleet into a trap. The tactical display updated. The human ships were moving now, forming into attack formations with perfect precision. They were not rushing. They were not panicking. They moved like predators who knew their prey could not escape. Commander Vex drew his blade and rushed at Amy. "I will kill you myself." He never reached her. A side door exploded inward, and human soldiers poured through. They wore powered armor that made them as tall as the Dominion warriors, and they carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. The first 3 shots took down Vex before he could swing his blade. He collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive. The other generals reached for their weapons, but they were too slow. More human soldiers entered from other doors, from hidden passages, from places that should have been impossible to reach. Within seconds, every general in the room was on the ground, disabled by precise shots that wounded but did not kill. Tyrus watched his commanders fall with growing horror. This was not a battle. This was an execution. The humans had planned every detail, every move, every second. A new figure walked through the main entrance of the throne room. He was human, tall and straight-backed, wearing the uniform of a military officer. His face was hard and cold, showing no emotion as he surveyed the captured generals. "Warlord Tyrus," the man said. "I am Fleet Admiral James Lee of the United Human Navy, by the authority of the Galactic Coalition and the Human Territorial Government. You are under arrest for crimes against sentient life." Tyrus laughed. It was a desperate sound, the laugh of someone who refused to accept what was happening. "You cannot arrest me. I am Tyrus. I have conquered empires. I have destroyed fleets 10 times the size of yours. You are nothing but insects trying to bite a giant." Admiral Lay did not react to the outburst. He simply nodded to his soldiers, who moved to secure the room. "Your fleet is disabled," the admiral said matter-of-factly. "Your communications are jammed. Your weapons are locked. You have no reinforcements coming because every ship in your armada is experiencing the same problems." He paused. "You have lost, Warlord. The only question now is how many of your people will die before you accept it." A view screen activated behind Tyrus, showing the space battle outside. But it was not really a battle. The human ships were methodically disabling Dominion vessels one by one, targeting engines and weapons with surgical precision. They were not trying to destroy the fleet. They were capturing it. Why? Tyrus demanded. "Why not just kill us? Why go through all this trouble?" Amy stepped forward to stand beside Admiral Lee. "Because we want witnesses," she said. "We want the galaxy to see what happens when someone threatens humanity. We want every species, every empire, every warlord who thinks about attacking human space to watch this and understand." She looked up at Tyrus with those brown eyes that had seemed so kind when she first arrived. "We are not like you, Tyrus. We do not conquer for power or wealth. We do not kill for pleasure. We would have been happy to live in peace, to trade and explore and grow alongside the other species of the galaxy." Her voice hardened. "But you would not let us. You saw our kindness as weakness, our patience as cowardice, our hope for peace as an invitation to attack." She walked closer to him, and Tyrus found himself backing away from this small human woman who had somehow brought him to his knees. "David believed in you," Amy continued. "My husband believed that you could change, that anyone could change. He died still hoping that his sacrifice would mean something, that it would open your eyes to a better way." Tears appeared in her eyes, but her voice did not waver. He was wrong. Some monsters cannot be saved. Some darkness cannot be redeemed. And some lessons can only be taught through force. On the view screen, another Dominion ship went dark as human boarding parties took control. "You asked me why I smiled," Amy said. "I smiled because I knew this day was coming. I smiled because, while you were laughing at our weakness, we were building our strength. I smiled because every moment you spent mocking humanity was a moment you were not preparing for our response." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the photograph of her and David on their wedding day. "I smiled because my husband taught me that hope is important, even in the darkest times. And I smile now because his death was not meaningless. His sacrifice gave us the time we needed, the anger we needed, the unity we needed." She held up the photograph so Tyrus could see it. "This is for him. For David. For the 40,000 people you murdered. For the 800,000 who died in your wars. For every life you destroyed because you believed no one could stop you." Admiral Lee received a report on his communicator and nodded with satisfaction. "It is done," he announced. "The Dominion fleet has surrendered. All 12,000 ships are now under human control." Tyrus fell to his knees. The mighty Warlord, who had terrorized the galaxy for 15 years, knelt on the cold floor of his throne room, surrounded by his unconscious generals, watching his empire crumble around him. And standing before him, still holding her wedding photograph, Amy Park finally stopped smiling. "Take him away," she said quietly. "He has a trial to attend. On 1,000 different worlds, on space stations and colony ships and hidden bases throughout the stars, millions of beings from hundreds of species watched the broadcast that the humans had sent to every corner of known space. The image showed the throne room of the Dominion flagship, now filled with human soldiers standing guard over the captured generals. And at the center of the room, on his knees with his hands bound behind his back, was Warlord Tyrus. He had been the most feared being in the galaxy. He had made emperors beg for mercy. He had made entire civilizations surrender without firing a shot. He had believed himself to be unstoppable, unkillable. Now he knelt on the floor like a common criminal, forced to look up at the cameras that broadcast his shame to every watching eye. Amy Park stood nearby, no longer smiling. She had fulfilled her mission. She had delivered her message. And now she watched the consequences unfold with quiet satisfaction. Admiral James Lee stepped in front of the cameras and began to speak. "Citizens of the galaxy," he said, his voice carrying to every receiver, every screen, every listening ear. "What you are witnessing is the end of the Dominion Empire. The fleet that terrorized you for 15 years has been captured. The Warlord who murdered your people has been arrested. The war is over." The Admiral paused, letting the words sink in. "Many of you believed this day would never come. Many of you thought the Dominion was too powerful to defeat. Many of you wondered why the humans did not act sooner, why we allowed the attacks on our colonies, why we seemed to accept our losses without response." He turned slightly, gesturing to the bound Warlord behind him. "Now you know. We were waiting. We were planning. We were building an army in secret, gathering intelligence, placing our people in positions where they could strike when the moment was right." His eyes hardened. "Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not surrender. And when we are wronged, we do not rest until justice is served." In the viewing audiences across the galaxy, reactions varied. Some species cheered. Others wept with relief. Still others watched in stunned silence, trying to understand how the youngest spacefaring species had accomplished what older, more powerful civilizations could not. Admiral Lee continued his speech, but Amy was no longer listening. She walked slowly toward Tyrus, ignoring the guards who moved to stop her until Admiral Lee waved them away. She knelt in front of the Warlord, so their eyes were level. You think this makes you better than me? Tyrus spat. His voice was hoarse, defeated, but still filled with defiance. You are conquerors too, killers. You will become exactly what I was. Amy shook her head slowly. No, we will not. You lie. Power corrupts. It always has. It always will. Give it time. Your people will become just like mine. You will conquer. You will enslave. You will build your own empire on the bones of others. Amy reached into her pocket and pulled out the photograph of David. She held it up so Tyrus could see it clearly. Do you see this man? She asked. His name was David Kim. He was a teacher before he became a diplomat. He spent his life helping others. He believed that kindness was the greatest strength. That understanding was better than violence. That even the worst person could find redemption if given the chance. Tyrus looked at the photograph with contempt. He was weak. That is why he died. He was kind, Amy corrected. And yes, that kindness killed him. But it also saved millions of lives. Because while he was negotiating with you, while he was trying to find a peaceful solution, the rest of us were preparing for war. She stood up, still holding the photograph. David believed in peace. I believe in consequences. Together, we were what humanity needed. The hope that kept us going and the fury that kept us fighting. She looked down at Tyrus. You killed the hope, but you could not kill the fury. A soldier approached and handed Amy a small device. Ambassador Park, the soldier said. The Coalition Council is ready for your statement. Amy nodded and turned to face the cameras. Behind her, Tyrus was pulled to his feet and led away by guards. His empire was gone. His fleet was captured. His legacy would be nothing more than a warning to others. Amy spoke directly to the watching galaxy. I am Amy Park. 3 years ago, my husband David was murdered by Warlord Tyrus. He was the 16th ambassador to die in pursuit of peace. I volunteered to be the 18th because I knew peace was no longer possible. I knew that some enemies cannot be negotiated with. Some threats can only be ended through strength. She paused, and her expression softened slightly. But I want the galaxy to understand something. Humanity did not want this war. We did not seek it. We did not celebrate when we won it. We are not a species of warriors hungry for conquest. We are teachers and artists, farmers and scientists, dreamers and builders. She held up David's photograph again. We are this man, who died believing in the goodness of others. We are the 40,000 civilians who just wanted to find new homes among the stars. We are the 800,000 who died simply because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Our voice grew stronger, but we are also the 7 fleets that waited in the darkness. We are the 14,000 warships that moved as one to protect our people. We are the soldiers who fought, and the spies who gathered intelligence, and the engineers who disabled the enemy fleet. She lowered the photograph and looked directly into the camera. We are human. We love deeply. We grieve deeply. And when someone takes what we love, we do not stop. We do not forget. We do not forgive. We simply wait for the right moment. And then we act. Amy stepped back from the camera. To the species of the galaxy, we offer friendship. We offer trade. We offer cooperation. We want to learn from you and grow with you and explore the universe by your side. Her eyes hardened. But to anyone who thinks I'm attacking human space, of killing human citizens, of treating our kindness as weakness, I offer this warning. Look at what happened to Tyrus. Look at his captured fleet and his ruined empire. Look at the most powerful warlord in the galaxy, brought to his knees by a species he called children. She smiled, and it was not a gentle smile. And then ask yourself, is it worth the risk? The broadcast ended. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. The Dominion Empire was dismantled. Its conquered territories were freed. Its slaves were released. Its generals faced trial for their crimes. And Tyrus himself spent the rest of his life in a prison cell, surrounded by guards who never let him forget what he had lost. The alien empires began studying humanity with new interest. They read Earth's history books with growing fascination and horror. They learned about Thermopylae and Stalingrad, about the world wars and the resistance movements, about a species that had clawed its way from caves to starships, through endless conflict and struggle. They learned that humans were not just dreamers and builders. They were also survivors, fighters, a species that had spent its entire existence at war with itself and had somehow turned that experience into strength. And they learned the most important lesson of all. A lesson that would be taught in military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. Never mistake a human smile for weakness. Never assume that kindness means inability. Never think that patience means acceptance. Because sometimes, in the darkness of space, something is waiting. Something that loves deeply. Something that grieves deeply. Something that remembers every wrong and counts every debt. Something human. And when it finally moves, when it finally acts, when it finally reveals the fury that has been building behind that gentle smile, there will be no warning. No mercy. No escape. Just consequences. Amy Park left the military after the war. She returned to Earth and became a teacher, just like David had been. She spent her remaining years helping children understand the universe, teaching them about the stars and the species that lived among them. She never stopped smiling, but those who had seen her in the throne room of the Dominion flagship, those who had watched her bring an empire to its knees with nothing but intelligence and patience and unbreakable will, they understood what that smile really meant. It meant that humanity was watching, and humanity would never forget.